Dr. G, pleasure to have you here today. You and I have known each other a while. You're a nationally recognized leader in applying information technology to the delivery of care. You've held prominent positions in major organizations. You're a change maker in digital health. Can you share with us a key moment in your career that really got you started on this approach to integrating digital health in the delivery of care?
Sure. First, Scott, thank you so much for having me. Casey, Mike, the Premier team, it's such an honor to be here. I have to tell you, just sitting next to Dr. Chopra will bring your blood pressure down. So I highly recommend it when you get a chance. I think the most pivotal moment in my sort of journey in health tech, very similar to yours, Deepak, is how I started, which was a big accident. Right? I was either in the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the right time, depending how you look at it. But the long and short of it is I became a rheumatologist because my mom actually has a very rare autoimmune disease. And she was misdiagnosed her entire life, actually, until I became a rheumatologist and actually diagnosed her correctly. But a big part of her journey was her data and her records being in disparate places, and all of her doctors, pulmonary, cardiology, neurology. She was seeing every specialty you can imagine, but they were all in different institutions. And her data was not following her, and certainly not following her in real time. And so there was a point in my late 20s when I was a fellow here at George Washington when she was dying. And I stopped everything, almost got thrown out of my program, stopped everything, got all of her records, which was itself a mission, and then put it all together. And I put it all together chronologically. And I said, okay, mom had these symptoms, ultrasound was done, then pulmonary did the CT, yada, yada, yada. Made the diagnosis, saved mom's life. Mom is now 76, lived to meet my daughter. It's doing great, thank you. Thank you. But the moment that I had was, I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky. I mean, how many people can have a rheumatologist figure out what their mom has? And I have to say, I want to say I'm smart. Mom didn't have anything so esoteric. It's just the puzzle was very difficult to piece together if you didn't have the data. And I was living at a time when electronic health records were just getting started. I was training. And I said, every one of my patients should be able to do this with or without me. They should have access to their data. Their doctor should be able to communicate, virtually or otherwise. We should have insights and analytics to be able to help us make diagnoses at the bedside better, faster, and smarter. And so I've really dedicated my career in health tech to my mom, but to every patient out there who doesn't have a daughter who's a rheumatologist, right? It shouldn't take that. It just shouldn't be that difficult.
I was recently, I got asked by a friend to look at some lab results and sort of a complex compilation of symptoms and lab results, and so I put it into Claude. And the presumptive diagnosis in this case was hemochromatosis, which is a genetic disorder that causes iron overload, and there were signs of that, but it just didn't smell right to me, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. So I put it into Claude, and Claude came back and said, this could be hemochromatosis, but it looks like a lab mistake. Repeat the lab tests. So I told my friend to do that, and it turned out to be right. It was astounding. And I also recently completed an exercise where at the American Enterprise Institute, we published this on CNBC, where we administered the USMLE Step 3 medical licensing exam to the top 5 LLMs, so Llama, Grok, Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. ChatGPT scored a 98%. The others scored in the 80s. The passing grade, mind you, on the USMLE Step 3, as you know, is 60, and the average physician gets a 75%. So I just sort of preface my question to you, you talk about pulling together a complex history and a complex series of tests and being able to discern diagnosis from looking very carefully and longitudinally, but how do you see AI starting to impact what you were able to do on a more routine basis?
Well, look, generative AI is the operative word. Claude, Bob, whatever names we come up with, right? Dr. G's a good one. I'm waiting for that one. But the truth is, we are in the business of humanity, right? And when we look to the future of what things like generative AI and many other technologies can do, we first need to reflect and look at the technologies we've implemented to date and what we've done wrong. And the biggest thing that we've done wrong is we've really hurt the workforce, right? Electronic health records have really set the tone for the way physicians feel about technology across the board. And for the most part, you all know this, they're turned off, right? Because the electronic health record solved 3 problems, but created 5 new ones. And is a large contributor to burnout, not the only one, but certainly a large piece. And so my biggest pause with generative AI is to say, look, we have to point these technologies, first after understanding them more in depth, because we are still learning, but we need to point these technologies at ways that complement the workforce. And when you talk to technologists, which I spend a lot of time doing, the first thing they say is, hey, Dr. G, we have this physician shortage, everyone's burnt out, we're just gonna replace them. We're gonna replace them with Claude. And I stop and I say, so that's the wrong problem to solve, right? The problem to solve is how do you get doctors happier at the bedside, complemented with technologies that make them better, faster, and smarter. And I'm gonna give you an example since I get to pick on Dr. Chopra. This may not happen again, so I'm gonna milk it, right? Why do patients come to the doctor? Patients come to the doctor because they trust their physicians. 92% of Americans still trust their physicians, even if they don't trust the institution of healthcare or science. But if someone said, Dr. Chopra is my doctor, how many people want to see Dr. Chopra? Casey, I know you do, right? She's a huge fan. You come to the doctor because you know Dr. Chopra, and you want to be seen by him, in spite of the system that might not be the best and the office manager that may not be very polite. And so we have to understand that consumers come to the doctor for the doctor. And if we were to replace Dr. Chopra with Dr. Claude Chopra, the consumer knows it's not Dr. Chopra. And that 92% trust drops, and the loyalty drops, right? Now, if we're able to give our doctors technologies that can help them better document, better do prior authorization, do the things in your world, Scott, right? Better diagnostics, better therapeutics, the things that you do at Pfizer and Illumina, right? If we can make the friction in healthcare, which is largely the back end, make our doctors happier, because we also know that burned out physicians lead to really bad consumer experiences. There's no good consumer experience if your workforce is pissed off, overworked, underpaid, and hasn't slept in a few days. Does that make sense? Do you guys see that every day? Oh, thank you. So I love Claude as an assist, right? I love generative AI as an assist, as my co-pilot. But I would rather see Dr. Chopra any day. And that's what we have to remember. We have to remember the humanity. To get the tech right, we keep the humanity in medicine. That's the key.
Just thinking about how cool it'd be to see Dr. Chopra. Are you taking new patients?